Good evening. It's 5:34 p.m. It's Tuesday night, which means one thing and one thing only. The N5 show is officially live. Good evening for myself, Smuggsy.
And that's me, Jim.
And we will hit another edition of the fast-growing, very much paced show, which is the M5 show. Before I start, I'm going to obviously introduce my co-host, Jim. How you doing, mate? And how are you at the moment?
Yeah, all okay, mate. Thanks very much. Doing all right. Yeah, it's been a very bizarre week, shall we say? But nonetheless, we're getting through it so far. But yeah, everyone is safe and sound. Family are well. The UAE has been quite remarkably impressive with its approach to the citizens and residents of all of the 7 states. So yeah, been a bit of a bizarre couple of days to be around, but nonetheless, still feel very safe and very confident in the region that they've got our best intentions at heart.
Yeah, obviously my thoughts go out to absolutely everyone who's out there, and obviously yourself, mate. Just glad to hear firstly that obviously you're all safe and well. I'll be totally honest with you. I can't even imagine, like, obviously how you kind of feeling at the moment and how you've kind of managed the last 4 or 5 days with the family. But it's good to hear that you're firstly you're on here tonight, mate. But also more priority in terms of obviously that you and the family are well. And yeah, I just wish you all the best, mate, over the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure we're going to get sort of stuck into it, and all the listeners, whether it be via the X channel or the YouTube channel, I'm sure Smuggsy's put all the tweets together to get everybody tuned in. But yeah, it's honestly, mate, I think I might have messaged you on your way home, but I generally think the most nervous I've been the last 4 days was the final 10 minutes of the Chelsea game. And bearing in mind I'm living in here and heard probably 15 to 20 booms above my head, yeah, that says a lot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can imagine, mate. I can only imagine. But I suppose as well, like it puts life a bit of priority, don't it, in terms of like we're all sitting there thinking about the title race, this and that. The world's gonna like, do you know what I mean? If we kind of draw a game or lose a game, and when you start putting things in reality, actually, there's a lot more important things in life.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, yeah. I totally agree, mate.
But we're going to crack on now in terms of obviously the M5 show and obviously look back at last weekend. Chelsea at home, 4:30 p.m. kickoff. But before we go into that, Jim, I'm just going to obviously go rewind back a day into the Leeds versus Manchester City game at Ellen Road, which was a 5:30 kickoff on Saturday night, which Man City come out 1-0 winners to a frustrating, I've got to be honest with you, 47th minute goal, which was well into injury time of the 2 minutes. It was literally on the second that obviously the referee would have blown up. A big win for Man City there.
Yeah, it was, and it was a game actually that I thought was potentially going to be a little bit of a tricky affair for them, to be honest. And after watching it in the first 45 minutes, to be honest, mate, I probably 20 minutes into the game and I kind of already felt like I knew the result. I was just waiting for it to happen. Calvert-Lewin had a couple of really big opportunities in the first 15 minutes. If you just don't strike against a team like that, like, you're just going to end up getting punished. So, it was just one of those where they didn't take their opportunities. They held on and held on and held on, but something was going to happen. A moment of quality was always going to come their way. And, Semenyo finishes it off, and then they're in the ascendancy when they're 1-0 up. And I guess their big moment, and I don't really want to spend too much time on it, to be honest, because I'm just a bit kind of over it. But their big moment was 85th, 86th minute when the VAR call was there for the handball and it doesn't come for Leeds, which I think at the time Arsenal fans were incredibly perplexed by the decision. But did we get one go our way with Rice the day after? And you just kind of assume that these things just balance themselves out.
In terms of that, do you believe it's a penalty?
The Leeds one?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a tough one, really, because I've just completely kind of fallen away from understanding what a natural or an unnatural position of an arm is. The whole narrative around what is now perceived a knee-jerk reaction by a human being, and everything that's gone into hundreds and hundreds of years of DNA as to what kind of builds into our reflex system is just like completely basically an impasse based upon now you can slow video down and someone else gets to have an interpretation of it who's not a doctor, they're a referee. So, looking at the two of them, I think probably if I was staying completely neutral, the fairest decision was somewhat made because I think they're either both a penalty or neither of them are. The City one hits it. The only thing I would probably say is the City one hits him below the elbow. But mate, the rules change so often, Smugs. I don't even know if I know all of them now, to be honest. If I'm completely honest with you, but the rule, it hits him below the elbow, which would sort of nominate that it was a penalty because his arm is what looks like quite unnatural because it's raised. But again, if you go and stand in the middle of your room and you try and jump as high as you possibly can, it's very difficult to do it by leaving your hands by your side. So unless you're impersonating a dolphin. So I don't, and then the Rice one, he's up. He hasn't really raised his arm. It looks like it's maybe hit him on the very upper arm, kind of in line with the tricep nearer the shoulder. And obviously a shoulder is not deemed as handball and it's an active part of the arm. And, you see people like when they're sort of putting a bit of flair around or a bit of yoga bonito, they'll do shoulder passes and things like that. So what part of his arm has that impacted with where that would be a handball? Because it's the saying is handball. It's not upper arm ball. So, it may honestly, it's really, if I'm being completely fair, they had their opportunities to score against City in the first 20 minutes. They didn't take them. City got one big opportunity and they took it and they won the game. But, they put us in a position where we had to win the game and we went on and did it. So, that was another sort of game week chalked off.
And the interesting selection piece was obviously Erling Haaland didn't play the game. Pep Guardiola is being very cautious at the moment in terms of revealing what the actual issue is. Do you think we'll see him back tomorrow night?
I'm not sure. It's been a bit of a funny one, isn't it? Because they've somewhat kind of played down what his injury is and sort of not determined what part of the body it is or anything else like that. So I don't know. Pep's as good as anyone at keeping a lid on whether players are fit and available or not. But I expect to see Haaland if he's fit enough to start games. He's such an elite footballer. If he's not quite ready, then maybe they'll rest him. But I don't know, mate, to be honest. I don't follow City close enough. I have this conversation with my son all the time. He runs into the room and sort of wants to tell me interesting facts about other teams, and I very quickly usher him away and say, look, mate, I've been like this for 39 years. I won't be any different now. I'm really not interested in anything other than Arsenal. It's emotionally and time consuming enough to be immersed in one team, let alone everyone else.
Yeah, no, I totally agree at the moment. Very draining. And on that note, we will move into Sunday's game, obviously against Chelsea. no selection surprises was there really. The same team as obviously the win at Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it was the same. It was the same side, and it was which I don't actually necessarily think I completely agreed with. There was a couple of performances in the Spurs games that I wasn't overly fond of, mate, if I'm being honest. So we did go out with the same team. And if I'm being honest, from the Spurs game, mate, it was the same usual suspects that I felt let us down in this game. What did you make of the 11 against Chelsea? And did you think it was the right team?
I think it's very hard to personally drop anyone after that performance. But then saying that, I think after our show last week, we knew my kind of thoughts in terms of Leandro Trossard's performance at Tottenham. And I'm going to be frankly quite honest, I didn't see much of improvement on Sunday as well. So the more and more I think about it, if he's gonna consist with Zubimendi and Rice in midfield, I want to see Eze move over to the left with Havertz coming in as number 10 role. I'm going to be totally honest, I don't really see what Trossard's offering us at the moment. Martinelli had a better impact when he come on, but we know that he pretty much, when he starts games in the Premier League, is not good enough either. But Martinelli did have an impact. He got Neto sent off, so that was the big, obviously, probably turning point in terms of the whole game, because actually, I think our second half performance, and we'll get onto it, was not very good whatsoever. So yeah, I didn't expect much different, if I'm being totally honest with you, and if I'm being frankly honest with you, I expected Trossard to start.
Yeah, okay. And what about more specifically, because I'm going to have a big thing to say about him today. What about more specifically the midfield?
I thought yet again Zubimendi was not really at the races on Sunday. I've been quite vocal in terms of especially our home games. Moving forwards, coming out of this fixture, I'd like to see us probably be a bit more expansive. If I'm being frankly honest, I'd like to see probably Declan Rice sitting at number 6 in certain games with Havertz and Eze actually in front of him. Do I think it will happen? No, I don't. But that's what I would personally like to see. And if I was to select on that selection, I'd probably play Martinelli out on the left.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think that's literally where my my head was at. To be honest, I probably wanted to see Martinelli on the left. I actually probably wanted to see if he was fit enough to play Eze on the left wing and Havertz back in the midfield. But then we got the news that Odegaard wasn't fit, and Havertz probably wasn't ready to start straight away. So he went with the same midfield as Spurs. But if that was going to be the case, I probably wanted to see Martinelli there. And and I had my eye on a couple of other players, like Timber. Zubimendi was one. I'm really struggling with this Rice Zubimendi pivot at the moment, Smugs, to be honest. It's probably the part of the game that I think is struggling to create opportunities in the first half to progress the ball forward and help break the line, or at least put Eze into the half turn where he can kind of create in the final third. But then I think it's starting to look really vulnerable, and a few cracks are appearing in the last third of a game, certainly last 20 minutes, where teams just kind of look like, doesn't matter where they are in the league table, whether it be Wolves who did it, Spurs not so much, but Chelsea did it all game through Palmer, where they're just walking through the middle of us. And this whole situation about, in essence, a double pivot of Zubimendi and Rice, who have a defensive bias to them, are supposed to give us an increased defensive stability if we're going to lack something going forward. Well, it's completely remiss to play it if you don't get the defensive side, because you're giving up on the goal scoring side. So you've got to, I want to get your thoughts on it, but I've got to say that, to me, I believe that that midfield too has got to change, and it's got to change soon if we're going to go on and win this Premier League title.
I think it'd be interesting tomorrow night in terms of like where Declan Rice is at, because I didn't realise as much like in terms of how we kind of sustained that like kind of limp injury, weren't it, in terms of stretching for that ball, which obviously went out of play. So it'd be interesting in terms of selection tomorrow night. I think because obviously we're away to Brighton, I think the right thing would be to play Zubimendi and Rice tomorrow night. But looking at that game, obviously at Mansfield, look, I know like we're not going to play many of our kind of first team players, if any, we've been on the show. But I'd like to see that game to be given a chance. Actually, Odegaard and Havertz can pick up minutes in that game. So why not have them two playing in that advanced position in that game? Just to sort of kind of see like how it kind of works. But I would definitely like when we get into the Everton game, actually for us to start like looking at these fixtures, especially at home, coming into the end of the season. You look at the run and you think, really, we should win every single game between now and the end of the season at home. We've actually got more home games than away games, which is obviously a massive plus as well. And look, after tomorrow, we go away once out of London to Manchester City, which I believe is on April the 18th. So the fixture list in terms of travel and in terms of the running, it's been very, very nice to us. Do you know what I mean? But with that, I just feel that our games at home, and I've said this time and time again, are an absolute struggle. And it's not just Chelsea, do you know what I mean? Because we can go into so many games like over the last 2 to 3 months and we've not performed to the level that we're capable of at home. And I do totally agree with you. I think it's how rigid our centre midfield is. And I do believe if we offer that additional player in that attacking third, it's going to pay dividends at home. Like, if you've got Havertz and Eze pulling the strings, we all know that Declan Rice can play the number 6 role. He pretty much played that number 6 role for the first half of the season when he joined the club. And there weren't much wrong with it at that point, mate. Do you know what I mean? So that's how I would like to obviously approach it. I look at the away games and I think you just adapt to who you've got. And look, I would play Zubimendi and Rice tomorrow night because obviously we just need to get the job done tomorrow night. And I think that would be a big risk to do it tomorrow night. But I think coming out of this game, you've got some nice fixtures. You've got some home fixtures. We don't go away again in the Premier League till April the 18th. So for me, we just got to make sure we get the job done. And look, goal difference is going to be a massive key in this title race. It could go down to goal difference. So us only winning by 1 clear goal at home, yeah, it's beneficial because we pick up 3 points. But if we pick up a draw away from home and Man City win the next game, actually, they win their game in hand, everything's level. So we need to utilise the home games, for me, to kind of build the goal difference as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a valid point. I hear the point you're making. I'm just not sure if I I agree with the context of it, but I kind of see it in a slightly different way. And I'll tell you for why. For me, the issue external noise, and I've never really noticed that much actually the influence of the media in a Premier League title race as much as I have done now, with the kind of changing evolution of how media is now reported predominantly through X, and every single person now is a reporter or a football specialist or a ball addict or knows their club intrinsically or whatever it is. However, what I do see from it is that what you can control is the controllables, and what is better for a team that hasn't won such a prestigious trophy together, where obviously Manchester City have got players in their dressing room that have, or they've recruited players who've won major honours like a Donnarumma or whatever, right? Is that you can instill a confidence into a dressing room by creating convincing wins. And I think this is something that Arteta has failed at this year, because it has just happened so regularly that we have gone into the last 10 minutes in a game plus injury time and the fear and anxiety in the fan base is rife because we're holding on to a game for dear life. We're retreating into possession. We're inviting the other team on, and we basically kind of just like, batten down the hatches, put a last line of defence up, defend for your lives, and just wait for the final whistle. And not seeing games out convincingly a little bit more regularly, I think, don't get me wrong, the elation of winning those types of games is probably a bit, but I feel like the first emotion will be a sense of relief more so than walking off with an aura of confidence around you, like our last Premier League team winning side, the Invincibles, did. Well, they never lost, first of all, right? But just because you go and put teams to the sword, and you just walk off and you just gaining confidence and gaining confidence and gaining confidence. And you can then instill that into players where almost you'd want the media side of it to be, this Arsenal team are a bit overconfident. They've almost got this cockiness about them. Well, they are natural attributes of professional athletes. It's what you kind of expect. You look at the lineup when you see a 100-meter final, even though Usain Bolt's in the field, you still see like a Gay and like a Safa Powell and all these guys. They've just got this aura of confidence around them that if I find something, like, I still won't be caught. And I just think our lot just like fall to the ground at final whistle, and I just think, thank God for that. Like, I mean, I'm so glad that's over. And that just doesn't exert to me a confidence in the team that's like 9 games away from lifting a title. And I'd understand if this was our first run in, but this is his 4th in 4 years. He's had 100-something probably plus Premier League games where he's starting to understand what these sorts of feelings are. And we're still not going and seeing games out. Like, I would much rather the final whistle go against Chelsea where we're 2-1 up, but we're camped in their half and we just won't let them out, and we're putting the pressure on them, and we're firing shots off at Sanchez trying to push for the third, and then the final whistle goes, and then it's all fist bumps. Because I'm telling you, like, the fans will walk out the stadium saying, we battered them today. It should have been 3-4. Instead, you're like messaging me going, mate, I can't do this much anymore, mate. I'm in that stadium, mate, and it's just like, honestly, my bloody ticker is just going up the clappers. Like, this season's going to take the end. It's going to be the ending of me. And that, for a team like that just doesn't resonate for me, Smugs. For a team that's in all 4 competitions, won the Champions League unbeaten, 8 from 8, got a pretty good draw in the Champions League, in a League Cup final, 5 points clear in the Premier League, and still in the FA Cup. When you reel it off like that, the season we're having, we shouldn't really have this aura of nerves around us. We should have this cockiness and confidence about us that, like, we could win a quadruple here. Like, we're going to probably make history here. And, that for me is the cardinal thing that I think they have to overcome. And the way in which they do that is, as you say, is by going and putting some statements down, going 2-3 up at half time, seeing a game through, or just constantly attacking the other team and not even really giving. Do you remember at the start of the season, October, mate? We were like that. We were that team that teams didn't get shots on target against. Yeah. Now we're just now we're talking about Raya being the best goalkeeper at Arsenal in the last 20 years, or is he the best Premier League goalkeeper of Arsenal's history or whatever? Because he's having to make massive moments and saves in every single game we play. And yes, all right, the last 2 games with London derbies and Chelsea and Spurs or whatever have you, but we're having all these huge defensive moments in the last 5 minutes of every game. And I bring it back to this team selection. I think if you sacrifice one of Rice or Zubimendi for another attacking player, I don't think the defensive inequalities of the player coming in would be as little as the attacking benefit you'd get from having a more prominent player who can add to a front 5 or front 4 and create more problems. You would just put Rice in the 6. I don't think Rice is adding much in open play in attacks at all. I just don't think his distribution is quite there. He's not breaking the line with his pass. He's not going beyond the runners and like getting into the box or crashing. but he still offers like just the most incredible threat from dead balls. So you have him in the 6, right? But if you could have an Eze and an Odegaard in that 2, and then or Havertz probably most prominently, because he will do the defensive work, and then you've got a Gyökeres, Martinelli, and Saka, or whether it's Trossard or Madueke or whomever it is forming the front 3. I think we will win more games than we don't with that formula, and that is just I feel like it's just coming home to roost, So yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that as well, mate, because we'll talk more specifically about the Chelsea game probably after this point, but I think it's very pertinent to how the Chelsea game went, and actually where our inefficiencies exposed us a little bit with just maybe our lack of creativity in the game as well.
I think on your first subject, in terms of having a swagger, I think, and having the arrogance, as you put it, and having the confidence, the one player for me that stands out to make that happen is Eze. Like, that's our maverick player. So for me, I honestly believe that we need to be playing this guy between now and the end of the season, because I think actually to if we're gonna win something, I think he's going to be a big part of it. But at the same time, as I've said, right, Kai Havertz, if fit, has to be in his team. So it's how Mikel Arteta approaches and adapts to the team to be able to allow these 2 players to play in his team. Now, he's got 2 options, isn't he? As we keep saying, he's got the option to put them both in advanced midfield 8-10 roles, or he's got the option to move Eze out left and keep Mendy and Rice. I'm totally with you, and I've obviously just previously discussed it, that actually in our home games at this moment of time, looking at the fixture list, I would go with the one player, either Declan Rice or Mendy, with the 2 more advanced players. Within that, our wingers have got to do a lot more. And I'm going to bring up Bukayo Saka's name again on Sunday, because, again, I was just a bit subdued with him, mate. Like, he'll get himself to the byline, and then the ball it'd be straight, like, especially in the second half. And we talk about, like, that nervy last 5-6 minutes, but I think we need to remember as well, right, that he hit the byline twice within 5 minutes before injury time, and both times, if I'm not mistaken, the balls go straight into the goalkeeper's hands. And I need to see more from him, mate, because I know what he can produce, and I know the player he is, and I'm still waiting for him to step up and start scoring some goals, and we're just not seeing him even get into positions where to shoot. You talk about Declan Rice, like, when was the last time that you remember him breaking into the box and having a shot? I don't know. I can't remember. Do you know what I mean? Like, probably two great opportunities that he scored against Bournemouth, and you're like, Declan Rice has that capability to get to the edge of the box and produce, but we're just not seeing it. We're not seeing it, and it's frustrating. It's very, very frustrating, because you look at the team, you look at the bench, and you sit there and you think, there's no one in the Premier League, including Manchester City, that have got the resources at the moment that we've got. But it feels like we're going to have this painful slog if we're going to get over the line. And you're right. I walked out that stadium on Sunday, and I'll be honest, and I wasn't the only person, because actually every single person I spoke to, every person I've read on social media, and it weren't just people that went to the game. Come on, it was people that were obviously at home watching it, whether it's in England at the same time, or people like yourself watching it late at night. Do you know what I mean? All putting all that commitment in. But it was, I just felt totally drained. And I turned around to one of the boys that was obviously with me, and I was like, we still got 9 more games of this. We got 9 more games of this. And I just don't believe, right, we can plod over the line playing like this. We need a big performance at home, in my opinion. Do you know what? I feel more comfortable away from home. I do feel more comfortable away from home because teams have to come out a little bit more. Look, the performances away from home haven't been that bad. Like Tottenham, we banged 4 goals in. Leeds, we banged 4 goals in. Bournemouth, we banged 3 goals in. So for me, this is pretty much a home stance in terms of actually, this is where I feel Arteta needs to tweak the team. And I think he's got the perfect opportunity now, mate. I really, really do. Like, let's have a look at where we got remaining to the end of the season at home. We got Everton on next Saturday, which, look, I raised the point to you last night when we had that discussion. Everton, I believe, are maybe the second or third team to pick up the most away points this season away from home. So it's not a gimme whatsoever. Do you know what I mean? You'd like to think we'll win, but we've got to go out there and do a job. Then, obviously, we go into the League Cup final. We come out of the League Cup final. We look at Bournemouth at home. You'd like to think comfortably we should win that game. We look at Newcastle, and as I said to you yesterday as well, it'll be interesting. I know Newcastle got a really hard Champions League draw, but just say for any example that they're still in the Champions League at that point, that club is going to be focusing on one thing and one thing only, because there's no intention that they can get anywhere near a Champions League spot at the moment. So actually, could be a perfect time to play them. Then you look at you go into May, Fulham at home. Look, half the team are Arsenal players, Arsenal fans. Not saying they're going to roll over, but do you know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, like, we should be achieving 3 points at Fulham, and then Burnley. So you look at our home games, mate. Like, really and truly, honestly, like, we should be getting maximum points out of that, and anything under that will be seen as a bit of a failure with them fixtures, because actually we've got the capability and we've got the players. But I am still in the mould, and I will still stick to it, that I actually think our home games is where we do need to potentially look at increasing that goal difference as well. And like, I don't want to be getting to a situation here, right, where we lose the title on goal difference, because I think if that happened, that would be the worst case scenario. I'm not saying it is going to happen, but we have to be quite mindful. It could happen. It could happen. So we're coming into a crucial part of the season. The League Cup final is going to be massive in terms of our confidence. In, like, if we go and beat Man City, wings are going to be up. The taste of success is there. 1 trophy's already in the bank. So that is an absolute massive game. But I think he needs to cut. Like, I honestly believe that Kai Havertz and Eze are absolutely key to our drive to the end of the season. Keeping Havertz fit will unlock the door for Gyökeres. It will unlock the door for Gyökeres. We know it unlocks the door for Gyökeres. We've seen it, and he's just a big game player, Kai Havertz, isn't he? And I just what I've seen so far of Havertz and Gyökeres, just like, you know what I mean? I'm licking my lips if I'm being totally honest, you mate. Because I just think that actually Kai Havertz is that man that can get the best out of him. And I think where Eze comes in, I think he gets good moments out of Gyökeres, like we see at Tottenham, where he took that player away, etc., etc. But I think he's the guy for the maverick moment. I really, really do. Like, he proved it last year in a Crystal Palace team, which is much inferior to this team. And I think with Eze now, keep getting the games. But I want to see more come out of him, mate. I want to see that player that's going to say, do you know what? I want to be that man. I want to be the main man, because really, when you look in that team, he's the maverick. He's the player that could make such a difference and pull the trigger for the whole team.
Yeah, look, I agree. And just before I respond, just wanted to highlight one of the regular listeners, BX Gunner. He put a lovely comment in earlier. This is one of my favourite weekly shows on YouTube. It's great content. Thank you, BX Gunner, for turning up every week as well. And he's got some other interesting points. He's always. I'll come on to his point he makes in a second, because I've got a few bits to digest there. But look, I agree with you that I think Eze and Havertz are integral. I think Gyökeres will be a big game player. I mentioned in last week's show that I love how unemotional he is, that whether he plays good or bad, he seems to be very, and Arteta said in his interviews as well, he's like one of the hardest people to talk to, because he just takes the information and says, yep, and just sort of moves on, and you never really know what he's thinking. And I like that. So he's not playing with emotion sort of in the positive side and also in the negative side. So I think there is really good moments still to come from him. I think always that, your number 9, the person that you want to be prolific, who just knows where the back of the net is always a player that you want to integrate into the team. I think even though that they didn't have their stronger games this week in comparison to last, Eze and Gyökeres got on the ball a significant amount more, and that's a shift that's happened in the last couple of weeks. They've both had just significantly more touches of the football than previous. So they are there, but there were issues in the Chelsea game that I think we've seen. We fired the ball up to Gyökeres a couple of times. You probably noticed the 2 times we put the ball into the channel, because on the TV it was telling, and everyone's like, "Oh, he's got to do better in the one-on-one situation." Well, Gyökeres, like, why is there no Arsenal shirt within 25 metres of him when he takes the ball into the channel and he's got the one-on-one? Like, someone should be there to take one of the oncoming defenders away from him, or create a passing option, or just help open them up. You can't send him into the channel. He gets the ball under control. He looks up and he's completely isolated on his own. It's just not. It's not the way that teams. You don't score goals like you used to score them in olden days now. Because they convolute the space and sort of suffocate you, and you just can't operate. So someone needs to be busting the gut from the midfield to add to sort of give him an outball option as well, so you can try and turn it into a proper goal scoring opportunity. I do want to attack your point on Saka, and I'm going to let BX Gunner's next point sort of roll over. Should Saka be getting more credit for the own goals happening from his deliveries? Should he be getting these assists? Well, in light of the Premier League rules and the goal contribution regulator, you do still get attributed with the assist if you put the ball into the box and it's headed in directly from that action. So you would get attributed that assist. And also, if your shot is going off target and it's deflected into the goal and then designated as an own goal, you still get the assist for that action as well. So he would be getting that. I think probably that, and I've spoken about this a lot over the show, that the soft demise of Bakayu's best form for me is quite evident, and it's the fact that he now plays with Jurriën Timber at right back. And against Spurs, when we looked like a real attacking threat and we scored 4 goals in open play, the fullbacks were given a slightly different role. And Hincapié's very good at this because he uses pace, he goes beyond the winger and stretches the left-hand side. But more often than not, Timber likes to invert and play off the touchline and almost like an outball between the 2 midfielders on the left-hand side for the centre-back, and looks to put the ball to the byline. But when he moves, what he does differently to Ben White is when he moves the ball out to the byline, he makes a channel run in between the fullback and the centre-half, whereby Ben White, if you remember, his infamous kind of signature move is he arcs his run around Saka and pulls the fullback away from him. So if Ben White makes that action and drags the fullback, what he then does is he gives Saka the opportunity to look up, and then he gets to get on the centre-half. Now, that would be much more telling with the work that Gyökeres does, because Gyökeres is pinning both centre-halves. So he's either going to have quite an easy slip ball into the number 10, and they can play a 1-2 and he can slide in, or he can use the fact that Gyökeres has pinned both the centre-halves, and Saka's signature move is normally getting a shot off on goal on the apex of the box. He's not getting the opportunity to do that. And I would probably say it's one of 2 things. He's played no minutes with Odegaard, who used to help create that situation, and he's playing very little minutes with White. And I would probably say that Timber at the moment is actually detrimental to Saka's game. So Look, it's just a summary of my opinion of watching the way they're playing now. But I do think it is isolating Saka's opportunities in games when he's playing so much football with Timber. On the other points you made, I think Eze and Havertz will be integral to unlocking Gyökeres. I think both of them like to play on the half turn. They're used to playing through the internal channels, and they look for the central ball as much as they look for the out ball into the wing, where they also then make themselves available. I think Havertz naturally is somebody who plays in the high 8.5, 9.5 position. So he likes to occupy the spaces sort of very close to the number 9, but also give them the slip ball. I think he's notoriously done it so many times over. If you watched the pre-season games in Asia where Havertz played in the 10, he plays that slip ball a couple of times to Marino, who goes on and scores when Marino was playing in the 9 and we were signing Gyökeres at the time. So, he's played that pass to Gyökeres in the Champions League and put him straight through and taken 3 guys out of the game. And then when Gyökeres gets to play on the half turn and he can openly run at a defender who's in retreat mode, that is when he looks most lethal. But when you're playing him into the channel and he's got no winger support, which helps the defender just back off a metre, that's what he needs. He needs the defender to be taken away from touch tight because he might have to intercept a second ball. And then he gets the opportunity, like he did in the first goal against Spurs, where he can just get the ball out of his feet and then he can fire a shot off, because he just needs a one pace run up, and then the shot is normally lethal. So I just think there's just tweaks to the actions that need to happen. And the only game really where Timber held his touchline was that Spurs game. And when he did do that, he got the opportunity to play the ball across the face of goal and get the assist for Gyökeres' first goal. And we just don't really see that pass from Timber, where he plays the ball into the middle of the park. So I don't know. I don't deny that I think Timber's got the attributes to play that role. But I think he's being coached to play a role that is detrimental to the way in which we're attacking. So, yeah, it's just I think you nailed it on the head. I think we've got all the personnel there, even with managing the injuries. But I just think they may be being deployed in the slightly wrong formations, and maybe some of the wrong people are on the pitch at the same time, and that was just a little bit telling for me against Chelsea. Because that's a Chelsea team that I fancy that we could put goals on. But really, albeit Sanchez was just so calamitous in the first half, we didn't really test him, I was thinking when he had a few of those mad moments where Gyökeres, Eze, Saka were almost kind of putting him under pressure and chasing him down. He had those wonky clearances. I was thinking, if this guy's unsettled, get the ball into the midfield or the striker quickly. Get shots off at him. Do you know what I mean? He's just not on his game. Like, work him out. But we just didn't really go and do that. And, we're obviously coming under scrutiny from, the leeches in the media, like the Chris Suttons of this world, who were sort of saying, we're the most boring side ever and X, Y, and Z. Not forgetting the Blackburn team that he won the Premier League in, but that's another story. But, and then we've obviously resorted to scoring 2 set-piece goals, and we've got the job done. But the inconsistencies of the chance creation, game on game, every 3 and 7 days, is baffling to me. And it almost looks like there's a bit too much information for the players to retain, because it really does look like we're changing our strategy every game, depending on the opponent. And I just feel like it's a bit of coaching overload. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think there's some quite interesting points in terms of obviously a lot of the stuff you delivered there. I just want to hit on the point of Gyökeres, because I had a conversation with a friend yesterday, and he was like, couldn't believe how poor he was in his view of Gyökeres one-on-one. And I had to say, and I obviously remind him that actually Gyökeres is not brought into this club to play that way whatsoever. And this is where my frustration gets, that there's so many occasions throughout the season where, like you pinpointed, that Gyökeres will be up top and he'd be literally on his own running a channel, and you're looking around and 20, 25 yards is probably the nearest player, and he's expected then to go and beat a Premier League centre back, which is never easy at any given time, especially when you're playing one of the top 6 teams. So this is where we need to unlock Gyökeres, and we've spoke about this week after week on the show, and we've seen it happen. And this just remind ourselves that actually Gyökeres is the most informed striker in the Premier League at the moment, in terms of since January. And I think his performances have got better and better. And I don't know if it's me, but I think he looks fitter and fitter as well. And I feel that he's getting that confidence now. But to sustain that confidence, he needs players around him. Do you know what I mean? And I just feel at times he's pretty much isolated. And because he's isolated is the reason why he gets the grief he does. And I just find it absolute weak, if I'm being totally honest with you, that people will review the game like that and monitor the game in terms of actually this is what you expect. Look, we know he ain't no Thierry Henry. No one's a Thierry Henry.
Exactly.
That's a freak in nature. But this guy is a top finisher. And you hit something on the head earlier on when you said to me that he's actually a big game player. And he's gone to Stamford Bridge in the last month and scored a big goal. Tottenham in a North London derby where there was untold pressure after what happened at Wolves. He went and banged 2 absolute beauties. The first one was absolutely outstanding. And this is a guy that we should be applauding, in my opinion. This is a guy that we should be building up as Arsenal fans, because if we want to get over the line, this guy is going to be the guy that's going to deliver for us. And he turns up in the big games. He absolutely does turn up in the big games. Look, his record in big games for Sporting Lisbon at one point as well. Cup finals delivered. So it's a bit.
I think also, Smugs. I think also, right, he has a bit of a warrior mentality. BX has just sort of said he's wasting such a huge amount of energy in the build-up. Like when we actually then turn over the football, he's in rest mode, which I sort of agree. But I just wanted to, sorry to cut across you. I just wanted to elaborate on the point you just made about the Spurs game. I honestly think, mate, he was created 3 chances in that game. One was where he was put into the channel, but quickly onto the apex of the box, and he was able to get the ball out of his feet and get a shot off, which beat Vicario, but just went past the post, right? And that was when we're like, all right, cool, he's got his eye in a bit here. And then the 2 goals that he scored in that game was the only time, really, where we've in the Premier League where we've been in positions where I think is where the reason why we bought him. One inside the channel where he can go to a one-on-one. The only thing Archie Gray can do there is hack him down and give us a penalty, or Gyökeres is going to get a shot off, right? Perfect. Really well taken goal. Used his strength, used his pace, and tucked it into the corner. Really nice cushion finish. And the first one is where he actually gets into a pocket of space. Finally, someone gets their head up and looks at him. It's a perfect touch, gets the ball out of his feet, and he just rifles it into the net. I'm sitting there thinking, he has just given you the sphere and the kind of playbook as to how you get the best out of this player, and then he's high on confidence, and we go into the following game week, and we just do nothing about it again. Like I just he even said in his post-match interview, didn't he? Like. We've been working on those moves in training. It was good to finally get them off in match situations. But if they work, I mean, someone was telling me a stat on him that apparently he's got 10 goals from 16 shots on target. Well, if I saw data like that, do is get this guy to shoot in positions where he can get a shot off, because he's obviously incredibly clinical from the basis of chance creation. So why would you not want to? Why would you not have a number 10 and a winger closely pinned to him? I mean, this was my frustration of Trossard. Not only did I think he was poor in possession, I thought he was just out of position all the time. I just didn't know what position he was playing on Sunday. He was running into the 10, which was like basically taking all of Eze's space away from him. He never held the flank, which left Hincapi exposed against Reece James, where really you should be doubling up on Reece James. And then, and he was just, and when we overturned the ball in our own half, it was almost in the left back position and he wasn't involved in any of the attacks. And I was just sitting there thinking, like, what are you doing, Trossard? Like, where are you? What are you offering this game other than just running into other people's spaces and just not offering anything, And I think we're struggling a bit in the two midfield positions because we've just not got two centre midfielders who are putting their foot on the ball and recycling the ball out. And I'm going to come back across, I know we're on Gyökeres, but I'm going to come back across Zubimendi because all of it kind of adds up a little bit, is that I'm starting to look at Zubimendi now and I'm thinking, you do have good games where you get forward and you're really active. And the Villa game, you just had a half where you were just a total central midfielder. But I think you have games where I just don't know anything that you've done. You've done nothing bad, but you haven't contributed anything to the game. You've almost just glided around and just kind of gone about the wayside. And I never really ever watched Thomas Partey, mate, and ever thought he had games like that. I used to think that even from a 6, when he played with Rice, Partey's distribution and out balls were always like, he used to play that lovely sort of rounded draw ball out to Saka, and he had the clip as well. And he also had a really good first touch where he could kind of turn into space and just move the ball diagonally. But he was always looking to move the ball forward. And I don't know if this is a coaching play now where the two central midfielders are being told to get the centre-backs on the ball a lot more and have them step up. But the two centre midfielders, mate, are not turning out and trying to put the front four in. It's just not the progressive pass. And I think we're really losing something with the complete lack of a deep line playmaker who works with the advanced 8. I think the 2 are very set back from the 8, and the front players are suffering from it. And that's another reason why still, even though he's got to 15 in all comps and 10 in the Prem, I still think the chance creation for Gyökeres especially is just so low. You just go back and look. This is what I mean about when people are judging him. And this is what annoys me about you saying you're having a chat with your pal. Like, everyone judges him week on week. If he scores, we've got an absolute player on around here. Top boy, do the mask celebration, mask on, blah, blah, blah. If he doesn't score, this guy's fucking awful, mate. Runs around in Timberlands, looks like he's stuck in toffee. He offers us nothing. His touch is shit. He doesn't do anything in the game. It's like, fucking hell. Like, honestly, like Yaka Yo-Yo, And really, I see Ross laughing at that. But it's probably because he's read the same commentary week in, week out on online, and you just see the narratives around Gyökeres just change every single week based on if he scores or not. And I just don't really understand it. But if you go and look at Ross, the Fantasy Premier League, if you go and look at Gyökeres on the Fantasy Premier League site, give yourself 5 minutes, probably good little bit of toilet reading, and you literally click on Gyökeres' games, and you can click on the stats tab, and it tells you his XG in each match. I don't think it has been before. Well, it definitely wasn't the Spurs game, so I can't remember a game where he has had over a 1.00 XG in a match. Right, and that means that we're not even creating, in essence, 2 proper clear-cut half chances, which would be a 0.5 XG. Because the Spurs game where he scores 2, his XG was 0.3. So the expectation of him to score in that game was like 0.3, and he scored twice. But his XG is so low, and that is the difference. His actual conversion rate from the chances that get given to him is spot on. He scored the amount of goals that were expected of him. So really, again, I feel like a broken record, mate. But we can't. Why are we looking at the player? We need to be looking at the chance creation. If he was 10 goals from 20 xG, I would say categorically this guy has flopped. But he isn't. He scored the amount of goals expected of him. So chance creation and open play is still absolutely essential, because he's not even a target man in dead ball situations. He is used as a battering ram and a rugby second row. If you watch the job that Gyökeres has to do in the corners, he is basically asked to huddle 3 opposition players up, right, and pin them. If you watch the Saliba goal especially, he's huddled 3 Chelsea defenders together and basically doesn't let them move. And then in the Timber goal, he's got 2 of them boxed off. He is not allowed. He's not allowed to, in essence, attack the ball. He just stops the defenders defending. So, not even goal scoring scenarios for your number 9. We think, here we go, we could pop up here. Where Giroud was like the main target when we used to have him. Like Gyökeres is just used to shepherd defenders so that Gabriel and Saliba and Timber can attack the ball. So it's there's just a flaw in the chance creation and the way we play, and the narrative around the fact that it's even remotely considered that we've just stepped into March. We played that game in February, but we just stepped into March. He's got 15 goals. Arteta's record is 17 with Lacazette. He's almost certainly going to get past that unless he gets a bad injury, right? Like, I just don't understand why we're aiming all of our attention to this guy, but everyone every single week goes away scot-free. I just don't see any real attention on any other player where someone's got it really in for him in a collective, but the entire fan base want to berate this guy, and I just don't understand it.
I think obviously with Gyökeres, I don't agree that it's the entire fan base, because I just think that we see this selection now, social media influencers, I'd say.
Yeah, you're probably mainly right there. But they are in their troves, though, mate.
Yeah, there is a substantial amount. But I'll be honest with you, when I'm in the stadium, I hear nothing. In terms of Gyökeres whatsoever, because I think when you're a going fan and you go each week, you can kind of see what's going on around the whole pitch, and we can see that he's isolated. You know what I mean? We can see that he's not being created chances week after week. He's not getting a high level of chances game after game. It makes no bones, yeah, right, that I struggle to see him getting many chances at home all throughout the season in the Premier League, and part of that is because how teams are setting up. Like, I think we need to remember as well, yeah, right, the way teams are setting up at home to us. I'm not saying that we're approaching it the right way, but like when I think of Saka, and I think about 2-3 years ago, he would cut in, he would have a shot. But now he tries to cut in, mate. There ain't no space. There ain't no avenues, because that low block is sitting there, absolutely knowing what he's going to do. But they know how to kind of cut off the space for the player like Gyökeres, because let's be honest, he's the guy that's going to put the ball in the back of the net. He is the guy. And I go back to in terms of like Subamendi as well. And I wonder, like, is he struggling a little bit with obviously the level of the Premier League in terms of obviously the difference in adapting from the obviously Spanish league. Now, for me, a lot of these really, really good performances, like the Villa game aside, I think it's been in the Champions League. And obviously had a really, really good game in the Cup. I think part of that is because of the way him and Rice are being set up. And I don't think that needs to happen when you're playing a player like Subamendi. Do you know what I mean? I think if we're going to play Rice, he needs to be in a more advanced position. Now, that's obviously down to Arteta, whether he wants to play with that or not. But I just look at a player like Subamendi, and I can imagine that he's pretty much played in systems, isn't he, where it's the one defensive midfielder and the 2 attacking midfielders, because that's the way Spain would play. that's the way he would know how to play in Spain. And I just feel with him as well, yeah, right? Has he been overused a little bit as well? And is he burning out a little bit? Because he has played a substantial amount of games. There ain't really no respite for players like him and Declan Rice, because they are having to play week after week. Because let's be frankly honest, there is no one else. Now, there is options if Arteta wants to change the system. But if Arteta doesn't want to change the system, the only option he's got, which, to be fair, we've given him his flowers over last month, is Norgard. And I will say that I was really happy to see him come on in a big game and be given that opportunity to see out that game, because I also believe that if we had done that in certain games over the last few months, results might have not finished the way results have finished, i.e. Wolverhampton being one of them games. So I think it's a mixture of everything with Mendy. I think there's an absolute top player there. I would like to see, especially going into next season, that the system does get changed. If Arteta doesn't do it in the last 9-10 weeks, and look, there's a big reason to believe that he won't do that. Do you know what I mean? Because he's pretty much done it the whole season. I would like to see it happen next year, because I think Mendy can control that midfield in terms of that baseline of the midfield on his own, especially at home. And I think Arteta's he's probably like the rest of us, but obviously try not to show it in terms of how tense he really is at the moment. And I can imagine that the pressure that he's probably going through at the moment is absolutely immense, because when you think, yeah, right, that the guy's in 4 trophies still, he's got an unbelievable chance getting to a Champions League final, in my opinion. He's in the League Cup final. He's in the 5th round of the FA Cup. But if we don't finish above Man City in the Premier League, he's only really, for me, got the Champions League as the buffer. And he probably knows that as well right now, that in terms of it, that he has to get over the line this year. He has to get over the line. Whether he feels that he's been burnt in the last few years in terms of certain situations, like the Aston Villa game a few years ago, when, let's be quite honest, we should have been 2-3 up in that first half. Whether he looks back at games, obviously, season before, where Southampton, even that we were 2-0 down within the first 15 minutes, whether he thinks that even the game against Bournemouth, which we won 3-2 in the end, we was 2-0 down after 60 minutes. Maybe he's burnt by that a little bit, and maybe this is why he's going the way he is. But for me, it's a massive 2 months for Mikel Arteta. For me, I want to see him get over the line. Obviously, I do. I want to see him kind of, obviously, shut everyone up. But the fear is there, isn't it? The fear is there. But for me, on Sunday, and this is the biggest part I'd say, right? Yeah, we was very tense in that stadium, but the fans were there. The fans were pushing them over the line. That team needs to calm down. That team really needs to calm down in them crucial moments. I could feel within that team what happened at Wolves. I could feel it. You see it, mate, on within that last 6 minutes. I went back and watched that last 6 minutes last night, and I was like, fuck me, it was that bad. Obviously, I was there and I realised it, but when I watched it back again, I was just like, how have we not professionally seen this game out like the way we should? We're playing against 10 men. And I believe that the fear in that team at the moment is so high. And I do agree with what Patrick Vieira said, that actually, if they get over the line this year, they'll probably win the league for next 2 to 3 years. They'll have an unbelievable chance of doing it because they'd have got over the line. But this is critical, mate. This is critical, this last 2-3 months. Honestly, I can feel it going through me now. It's how tense these games are, and they take it out of us. And if it's taking it out of us, what is it doing to the team as well? Do you know what I mean? They like, it's easier for them because I know they're on the pitch, they can control it. But it's the first time that I've actually sat there, right, in the stadium and felt it, not from the stadium, but from the team.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you just raised a really good point. And well, I think, to be honest, that they coincide. I think one rolls over to the other, and there's just a constant ask and expectation. I know this frustrates you from Arteta for the fans to, put your shin pads on, put your socks on, put your shirt on. Do you know what I mean? Get behind this team, be the 12th man, etc., etc. But there is also then an expectation that you can play with an element of maturity where you don't have to go into the dying embers of each game where you're holding on for your life. So, I do think that there's been enough players there now at the club, the substance of it is that Ray has been through 3, Gabriel Saliba have been through 4, White's been through all of them. Even though he's not playing every week, he's there. Rice has now been into 3, Havertz 3, Saka all 4, Martinelli, Odegaard 4. So, they've almost touched history in the club now into their 4th situation. Do you know what, mate? Probably coming back to try and counter your point as to what will be the difference and stuff like that. I think the way in which he's set this team up is very much as he's the leader, and I don't really feel like I felt like someone like a Vieira or an Adams would definitely question Wenger if they didn't agree. They'd stand up to him and say, hang on a second, yeah, I'm on behalf of my players on the pitch, yeah, I see this and this, right? And almost certainly Roy Keane would definitely do that with Ferguson. I don't think Roy Keane's actually doesn't really help pull any punches when he talks about his relationship with Ferguson, and obviously you've respected him as a manager, but I don't think necessarily likes him as a person the way he kind of comes across now. But I don't think Roy Keane likes many people, but that's probably the brilliance of the way he is a pundit. But I don't see Odegaard and Saka, mate, sitting there at Colney on a Wednesday afternoon and hearing a speech from Arteta and saying, hang on a second, Mikel, yeah, you just fucking not got it. Like, you're not seeing the frustrations we're getting on the pitch, mate. Like, we're not getting the ball into Eze quick enough, who can't turn and then play in. Or when we had Granit in the team, we had a left-sided left 8. It was way easier to get Gabby down the wing a little bit more so we could all pivot across and pull our man and have the overlap. Or I don't think they're sitting there like, I don't think the on-field senior captaincy team, which is Odegaard and Saka, whether people like it or not, it is, sit there and will challenge it, I just don't think they will. So that means that it is very much like, Mikel's head on the block for me. And yeah, look, it's a tough one because we're in the same position we were a week ago, where we're 5 points clear with a game in hand, and we've got past Spurs and we've got past Chelsea. And I think if we were offered that 8 days ago, we'd have bitten someone's hand off. But I just, the final part of it will come down to the confidence that comes from building performances on performances. And you and I spoke about this last week. I'm going to reiterate it now because I think it's a really telling time to make the point. It's not just about going into these games and matching City's results and winning them. Yeah, I think the importance of going into playing City twice in 3 weeks will come down to an arrogance in our performances, which will make them think this is not the same Arsenal team. Like they're a different side. Like we cannot take this team for granted. They're a different, bigger, wilder beast now. And I don't think at the moment Guardiola goes into City's training ground or into a dressing room before he plays us and has to have that same conversation. You've got to not remember, Haaland's like, stay humble, stay humble. Rodri's like mugged us off. Do you know what I mean? Like, who in our team's going to go on comms and mug them off?
Lewis Kelly. No, look, I think looking at the way things have gone over the last 2 weeks, I totally agree with you. Right, when what happened at Wolves happened, we're sitting there thinking, and I remember saying to you, we have to win the next 3 games. There's no like don't. And I actually think tomorrow night's pivotal, mate. I really, really do, right? Because you've had these 3 away games in 4, which is never easy for any team to go to 3 away games. Do you know what I mean? In the space of like 2 weeks, plus play 2 intense games against Tottenham and Chelsea, like our big North London rivals. And I do think getting over the line tomorrow and getting the win tomorrow is absolutely massive. Of course, it's massive, but we get a bit of a breathing space at that point. In terms of, look, we got the FA Cup game on Saturday, which would be nice just to focus on something else over the weekend and be able to put the Premier League on the back burner for a week.
Yeah.
I just think, right, the sooner, and look, fair play to Man City, because they're not playing well either by any stretch of imagination. But the difference is they're under no pressure because, let's be honest, at the start of the season, no one thought Man City were really going to be in the title race, whether that's right or wrong. Like, I'll be honest with you, when they got Donnarumma, for me, the goalpost changed. The goalpost massively changed when they got Donnarumma because I'm like, wow, they've got a world-class goalkeeper now and they've got a world-class striker. But they're not playing probably any better than us. The difference is, though, and you could tell on Saturday night, is they've got certain players, and you've hit a forward on a couple of them, like Rodri, that have been in these moments and come out of these moments as champions so that they know how to kind of manage these moments and manage these last 5-6 minutes of games. I do think the sooner Man City can drop a few points and we don't, would be the best thing that could happen to this team, because I think at that point there'll be that piece that we've nearly blown it 2-3 times now. We can't do it again. We've got rid of all the tough fixtures. Look, no fixtures easy, but we've got rid of what we would deem as like the really tough fixtures. We just go into Man City, and then I just look at that Chelsea Man City game a week before Man City play us. That's absolutely massive. Let's be honest, that game is absolutely massive because actually, if Man City don't come out the right end of that, and yet again, right, Man City haven't got a great record against Chelsea. If you look back at the fixtures the last few years, Chelsea seem to pick up points at Man City, or even at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah.
If they don't pick up the right points and we win them next 3 games, actually we go into Man City potentially with a 4 or 5 point buffer. So getting over the line tomorrow night's massive. If the game wasn't just 3 days after Chelsea, I'd be saying that I'd really be really comfortable we'll win. I do think we'll win tomorrow night. I think it's going to go 2 ways, to be honest. I think we'll either go out there and just roll Brighton over, or it's going to be like this horrible, tight game. And if it becomes that, then I can easily see a draw happening. It's a big, big game tomorrow night because I just think that we get over them period of fixtures, like through January, February to the start of March. And then actually you're not going to play 3 Premier League games in a week again for the rest of the season. So tomorrow, for me, if we get the win, I think we've got an unbelievable chance when I look at the fixtures for the rest of the season. I really, really do. I look at the Manchester City fixtures and I think there is room for them to potentially slip up in certain games. I think their back end of the season is much tougher than ours. So for me, tomorrow night is absolutely massive, mate. It is such a big night, and we've been to Brighton a few times. And look what happened last year: 1-0 up, and then we conceded that penalty, which, to be fair, was never a penalty. When obviously Pedro went up with Saliba and didn't win the game. So we know Brighton are capable. Look, they've been on a really bad run. They've only won their first home fixture of the year on Sunday. So the wins are going to be a little bit further up. But I just think I think we just need to go out there tomorrow, professional job, get it done, and then be able to get them players having a breather, because obviously we've got Champions League games coming up, and yeah, the FA Cup will give the fringe players a much well-deserved opportunity to kind of get the boys into quarterfinals of the FA Cup.
Well, I think Dowman will play against Mansfield. I don't know if you got a chance to watch his highlights from his comeback again, the under-21s, but Christ alive, didn't he? He looked mustard, mate. I mean, this kid has got some future, I tell you. But then there's maybe an opportunity for a bit of rotation with Madwakey coming in tomorrow night. I just read the highlights actually whilst you were doing your dialogue there on what Arteta said in his presser today, and the good news was that it looks like Rice is okay. But mate, again, I really hope this isn't a ongoing thing. But Havertz only did part of the training session, and he's like, we've got to assess Kai tomorrow and see if he can take any part in the game. And I'm just sitting there thinking, what has happened to this guy? Like what? He only come on for like a 15, 20-minute cameo against Chelsea.
Yeah.
So I was really hoping actually that 15, 20 minutes was going to be good enough for him to start and get 60 minutes in his tank. I really would have liked to have seen, I want to get yours, but actually you do yours first, yeah? I want to hear for Brighton tomorrow, mate, what team you want to see get put out, because I want to know that Chelsea game, whether or not there's any changes in it.
I've got to be honest, I probably wouldn't make any changes tomorrow, because I don't like now Kai Havertz. You say that, I just don't really see. Do I play Martinelli instead of Trossard? I don't know if I do, mate, because actually, like Martinelli coming on can give you some big moments. It's tricky, isn't it? Like, I just don't see where we change the team tomorrow, if I'm being totally on the show. As I said, Mendy and Rice, I do need to start tomorrow night away at Brighton. So it'd be Raya, Timber, Hincapié, who, look, I haven't really said too much about him. I thought he was fucking superb that first half. Take the own goal away, which is so unfortunate. Yeah, absolutely superb. Calafiori at the moment. Pardon?
He's been a class act. I can't really think of a performance where I think he's been poor, to be honest.
Calafiori for me, obviously, he's unfortunate now because he's probably going to be sitting on the bench for the rest of the season, the way this guy's performing. But that's the way it is. Saliba, Gabriel, centre backs, Rice, Subamendi, Eze, Saka, Gyökeres, and I probably would go Trossard. And that's the worst part of it all, because I just think that Martinelli be a better impact player to come on if needed. But it could be either of them.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go with Martinelli because we're away, and I think they might step up a little bit. I just think Trossard's had enough starts and not really done much. If Havertz was fit, I'd probably have gone with Eze and Havertz. Whether I'd have put Eze left and put Havertz in the 10 and stayed with the double pivot of Rice-Zubi, I don't know, or whether I would have actually just rolled the dice a little bit. Ben White is out of the game, so Tim's got away. I'll tell you another thing though, mate. I wouldn't even be that disgruntled if Mascara starts at right back. So I really think that Timber needs a week, 2 weeks out of the starting lineup. I really do. I think he just needs like a proper break just to really freshen up.
It's getting that break though, isn't it?
Yeah, well, he should get the break after tomorrow night.
Yeah.
He doesn't play against Mansfield, and then he should get a week off. So I think Mascara will play against Mansfield. Yeah, I think probably now, if we assume Havertz isn't fit to start, I would probably, the only change I would make would be Martinelli for Trossard. I just want to see Trossard probably get rotated out the side, and then and just give Martinelli a go. To be honest, I thought he was really electric when he come on against Chelsea, and he did really well in the. In the build up with with the Neto red card, mate. I will just say one thing about the Chelsea game: the 3 times we broke away and the referee stops the game to issue a yellow card, mate. Yeah. What's he up to there? That's just schoolboy, isn't it? I mean, the first time you do it, you're like, yeah, sorry lads, fair play. But then to do 2 more in the next 7-8 minutes was madness. I know when you're sending someone off, you potentially have to stop the game. So you give him some grace there. But the second one, I actually think it is Trossard who plays the pass and slips us in. And we're like 2-on-2. And he pulls him back for the next yellow. It's crazy.
Yeah, that was very frustrating, sir, at the very least. Yeah, at least I talk about the referee the better on Sunday, if I'm being totally honest. But yeah, I was just thinking about Trossard again. Yeah, right. Like just the way that he's playing at the moment, and this is another frustration. It's not totally with Trossard, but it's just a system that I feel that he plays in our half more than he plays in his own half. Do you know what I mean? Like I can't remember the last time I see Trossard in the box. Like this is a guy, yeah, right, that who scored many goals for Brighton and Arsenal, but one of his biggest qualities was getting in the box and he's finishing. Because let's be honest, he's probably one of the best finishers in the club when given that one-on-one opportunity or that chance. So yeah. It's so frustrating that we don't even see him get in the box whatsoever. Like I can't remember. Yet again, it's another player. I'm sitting there thinking, when was your last shot, mate? I might be totally missing it, but I do see why you'd start Martinelli tomorrow night. Absolutely. I just hope that if he does start, that he produces better than what he did at Wolves, because I thought, yeah, again, he was dreadful at Wolves. But I can only say the same with Trossard in terms of his performances. And this Kai Havertz thing, I'll just quickly hit back onto that. It is rather concerning, isn't it, in terms of actually what is the situation with him? Because what was he on for 20 minutes on Sunday?
Yeah.
Now,
yeah, about 20 minutes, yeah.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong, we need a player like Havertz. We need him starting, if we're being totally honest, but there's no point even playing him if this is going to be continue to happening. Do you know what I mean? Like, there must be something much more internal in this situation in terms of just the level of injuries he's getting. And this was even before he had this injury, because he's had past injuries, isn't he? And it's a massive worry, mate, because actually, you think about it and you think, like, no, not being funny, like, where does that leave him going into the summer next year? Because there's a big World Cup as well. And he's obviously going to be a massive part of this World Cup. Obviously so, and it's every player's dream. But I'm not sure at the moment, mate, that going to a World Cup would be in his best interest, because the guy just can't keep himself fit.
Yeah. It is alarming. You know, it's the sort of same situation with Odegaard at the moment. Just the number of games that they're missing is just is just beyond a bit frustrating. But you know, we still got so many games left. I mean, I know we've only got 9 Prem games. You've still got a cup final. You'd like to think that we've at least probably got 4 you'd have 5 Champions League games. You know, you're going to play. You expect you're going to play 2 legs against Leverkusen and 2 legs against Lisbon. So you'd think you're going to get past that, and then so that's 14 games. Then obviously you've got FA Cup against Mansfield. There'd be an expectation that you progress through that. So we still got probably like at least 16, 17 games. You know, maybe even 20 left in the season. So still a really good chunk of time. So, you know, there is an argument, I guess, as well. When you've said you think Gyökeres will get 25 goals, I can, it's 10 in 20. It's not mad to think that he could do that as well. But if he gets over 20 goals, anyone who's sort of still saying this guy's not the right guy, you've got to sell him. Honestly, mate, I think I just need a social media cleanse. I'm gonna have to go back in the shadows, I think. But yeah, so I think I agree with you on Havertz. Let's just hope that they're doing everything they probably can just to wrap him in cotton wool and just, you know, get all the recovery into him where they think he's completely injury free. Because I do agree with you. You made such a great point earlier. I would actually argue that I think he is our biggest game player. In
absolutely.
I think he is absolutely integral, and he doesn't care if it's a day game, a night game, Saturday or Sunday or midweek. When we play big matches, he is absolutely intrinsic into this team, and I think he's got a massive part to play in the back end of this season. I would not even be remiss, mate, about Dauman coming back onto the bench and being an impact player as well. Just sort of give him a license just to play with a bit of flair, you know. I still think he has. I know it's crazy because he's 16 years old, but I really think he has some value to offer. I really do. So, you know, can't be thwarted by his age. If you're good enough, you're old enough. And I do think with fatiguing sides and the season gets into the business end, he could fill his boots if he's fresh against some of these teams as well.
Yeah, I think it'd be quite exciting to see if he can what he gets on Saturday in terms of Mansfield, because I think that he'll deserve the opportunity to get some minutes there. I think in terms of just my last comments on Kai Havertz, I think that actually tomorrow night, like, I don't expect him to start the game anyway. So if he's not fit for tomorrow night, I'd like the right decision is not to play him. So, like as you said, I think the key is to kind of get him kind of fit and ready when he's fully ready to play football, and not risk him, because when you come out of this Everton game and then you've got a big League Cup final, actually there's a break then in terms of an international break. And I actually think that might do us a world of good, that international break, because you think these guys have been playing football every 3 to 4 days, apart from last week. The level of football that these guys are expected to play. And one thing I did agree with Neville about, and I don't like agreeing with Gary Neville on many things, but when he was saying that actually you can't be expecting these players to perform to these high standards every 3 to 4 days, because actually it ain't going to happen. Do you know what I mean? Like, anyone who expects that is living in cuckoo land. But that's where Arteta comes in, doesn't he? And he needs to kind of manage the squad. But I think tomorrow night, I think we can do without Kai Havertz. I don't expect him to start anyway, and I actually think that if it means that we give him a break and maybe not even play him at the weekend, because, like, in my opinion, if he's not around for tomorrow night, what is the point of risking him at Mansfield? There is no point of risking him whatsoever. Just give him the time to recover. Like, as you said, this is a guy that could be absolutely key to the end of our season. And I do think that he's the guy to unlock so much. So getting him fit and getting him in that last part of the season is going to be massive. And you hit one more thing on the head, and it's interesting. 20 more games potentially to go. That is a lot of football time. That's a lot of game time, mate. Right? Do you know what I mean? There's going to be massive Champions League nights, hopefully, over the next couple of months. The Premier League games coming thick and fast. Got a cup final. I've got in 2 weeks' time. And then hopefully we're in the 6th round of the FA Cup, and fingers crossed we get a nice draw. We could have another Wembley semi-final. Do you know what I mean? In the FA Cup. So there is so many big games coming up that it's no point risking him tomorrow night if there is some kind of doubt. But my last question before we go into the Mansfield game, are you confident tomorrow night that we'll get the result that we need?
Yeah, I think so. I think the defence is in a fairly good moment in the main. I think Gabriel and Saliba are both looking fit and they've got synergy. And I think Raya's in a bit of a wake up call in the Wolves game, and has been arguably unbelievable in the last 2 games. He had massive moments in both of those games. So I think Hincapi has gone from strength to strength. He's just got better and better as the season's gone on. And I never really have any two bigger issues in Timber. So I don't know. I can't think of anything in the midfield that's going to pose a real threat to Rice and Zubimendi. So I think they're going to be hard to break down. I think Van Hecker and Dunk are good centre backs, but they're definitely going to prefer an aerial game to one along the carpet. So I do hope that we almost deploy a slightly more kind of Spurs-like strategy, and we pop the ball around and let Eze get at them on the half turn, and we try and allow Gyökeres to play off the shoulder of the centre half and get those little runs in on goal. So, if we can move the ball quickly along the floor, I think we'll cause them no end of trouble. If we see the game and we'll know in the first 20 minutes, if we're going to try and get the ball to the byline, to the apex, side to side to side, and then get the ball on the apex and try and get balls into the box, I think it's going to be a really, really long night. So I would say that the style of play will determine whether tomorrow night we can put down a bit of a statement or... So I'm going to give you a score prediction, which will be 3-1 or 0-0. And you'll know which side of the camp I'm in after 15 or 20 minutes of watching the game.
I don't think it'll be a 0-0. I think it might be a 1-1.
I honestly think we'll really struggle to score, mate. We will really struggle to score goals into the box. Like those two are monsters in the air. Very physical, and very good at dealing with aerial balls. And I think, even from corners, I do not think that will pose as much of a threat. So I do think that we're going to have to. I do think we're going to have to play some better football tomorrow to create the chances we need. If we do that, I think we'll score 2-3 easy. And I'm not convinced we'll concede, but we are just really struggling for clean sheets at the moment, and it's the sort of 3-1.
I think Eze's key tomorrow night. I think he's really key tomorrow night.
He will be massively key, but they've got to get him the ball quickly and allow him to play in transition.
Well, yeah, they do, but they just need to do what they get done at Tottenham. Do you know what I mean? They just need to play that kind of performance and play that kind of game. I totally agree with you. Like, if you're putting balls into the box, like you're giving players like Dunk the bread and butter. Do you know what I mean? So it is going to have to be like getting players on the ball, getting them in advanced areas, and try and work around it. Do you know what I mean? In terms of them trickery through balls. Like, I think Saka's key tomorrow night as well. I think if Saka and Eze can get on the same wavelength, because I really enjoyed what they kind of produced at Spurs at times between them, and I think if they could get really close to each other at times, like these are two absolute quality one-on-one players. Do you know what I mean? And they could split any team to shreds just on their own. So to have two of them in the same side, I just think tomorrow night is going to be very key to go through them two. But like you said, we've got to get them players on the ball quick and early. Do you know what I mean? Because when we did that at Tottenham, we totally ripped them to pieces. And I feel like we just need to go out like we did in the first half against Tottenham. Do you know what I mean? And just like literally take the game to them. But maybe we feel that we're better suited to do that away from home because actually teams are going to come out more. And I look at Brighton. I don't think they're the team that will sit totally deep because that's not their style of play. So it could work into our kind of advantage, I do think, tomorrow night. But I want the same fast start because actually, even at Wolves, it was a fast start. At Tottenham, it was a fast start. So it's key that we have that fast start again, and try and get an early goal. If we get an early goal, then mate, like, do you know what I mean? It's then about us just being ruthless. And look, that's probably some of the times that we haven't been ruthless and made games hard for ourselves. Quite interestingly, Brighton at home was one of them games where we was 2-0 up comfortable, then conceded and literally clung on yet again to 3 points. So we know what they're about, but I don't think it's the worst away game tomorrow night.
I mean, I look at the team that they put out last week against Forest, and their midfield three was Pascal Gross, who's what, 34 years old, something like that. James Milner, who's the same age as me, because I've played against him. I'm pretty sure I played against him. Who's 38, 39, and Josh Hinchelwood, who's who's young lad. So I like mate, honestly, do you know what I mean? If you've got Rice, Supermendi, and Eze versus Milner, Gross, and Hinchelwood, if you sort of said that as a 3-on-3, you'd say that it was heavily in our favour, So you'd expect them not to have the running to be able to deal with that. And obviously, you got Welbeck up front as well, an ex-Arsenal player. He's having a phenomenal season. So, yeah, and definitely my pals have played against Milner. I think we played a cup game against him in schoolboy football, but yeah. So look, that's what I'm saying. I just remember him because of his age. I certainly couldn't be out on a pitch now doing a job. He actually is quite incredible. The level of fitness that Milner's got at nearly 40 years old to play Premier League football. But you should, if you pop the ball around, you should be able to kind of break that team down. So,
when you look at the teams, like if we play to anywhere near our capability and do what we did at Tottenham and even at Wolves to a certain extent in the first half, do you know what I mean? Like we should win the game, but I don't want this nervy finish tomorrow night, whatever happens. And I'm not sure I'm going to get my wish whatsoever. But let's just get this game put to bed, because actually when we get this game put to bed, them players got a breather for a week. And I think them players need that breather, do you know what I mean? Because it has been an intense period for them all. And they're going to be able to sit back a little bit on Saturday. Well, you'd like to think that majority of them are, if not all of them.
One thing I would say about Brighton, just looking at them, they have not conceded more than 2 goals since the 3rd of December, right? So you've got all of December, all of January, all of Feb, and the start of March. All of their games have been pretty tight, There's kind of as many losses, draws, and wins. They're kind of much of a muchness, but they're tight games. So, it would be telling of us to go out, and Ross has just said that he wants the game done the first half. I completely agree with him. I just properly stick it on them, and try and get a couple of goals up, because they're really struggling to score 2+ goals in a game, Brighton. And then I think you can control the game from there. But, because you might be able to pull them out a little bit. But I would really go hard and fast for the first 15, 20 minutes and just kind of stick a marker on them. And I do think we can kind of manage the game at that point and even rotate some players after 60 minutes and get the game dealt with. But if we let it just elongate, I really think they'll be hard to get over the line. And I really don't want to go into it, mate, and feel like we nick it 1-0 in the last 10 minutes or something like that. I think everybody could just do with a fairly compelling performance, and you can just go into the FA Cup and just take a bit of a breather, knowing we're at least 5 points clear, for a week or so.
I think the other thing as well, like interestingly, tomorrow night, there's a few players that probably won't have a point to prove there. Well, I wouldn't say point to prove, but like they're going back home as such. You know what I mean? So when you look at Gyökeres, he was a Brighton player, weren't he?
Yeah.
Trossard, Brighton player. Eze would be hated by Brighton. So I'm sure he'll want to go there and put in an absolute performance. So it wouldn't surprise me tomorrow night if we're talking about one of them 3 next week, because I think that them 3 players will have a little bit extra to want to win this game as well.
Yeah. It's a valid point, mate. It's a valid point. Right, should we do the Ask Jim and then try and wrap up?
Yeah, I was going to quickly go into Mansfield quickly.
Do you want to do Mansfield quickly?
Yeah, which it's not going to be war peace, is it? But look, obviously, great cup fixture, to be honest, yeah.
Brilliant.
Absolutely great for Mansfield as well to be welcoming the league leaders to their stadium. I'm sure they're absolutely buzzing for it. Should be comfortable, shouldn't it? Like when you look at what we've got in terms of reserve, like anything but a big cup upset would be absolutely damning on the Saturday. But I'm quite comfortable we get the job done quite comfortably, and it'd be good to see some of the other players get a run out.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure where White is at with his fitness, which is a bit of a problem, because I'd have quite liked to have seen Norgard in the midfield, and probably means that really I think Saliba might end up playing, because I think it'll be Kepa in goal, Mascara play right back, Saliba, Calafiori, and Lewis Skelly. Norgard will play. I think hopefully Odegaard's back. You'd like to maybe see Havertz start that game if he's just basically just trying to get to fitness, and then rotation of. I think it would be a good game for Trossard to play that. Actually, I really think it would be a better game for Trossard to play 60 minutes, get on a score sheet, and just get a tiny bit of confidence back in. Noni will probably play right wing, and obviously Jesus will start up front. But and hopefully, Noni gets it done early on, and he plays 60, and then Darwin comes on for 30 minutes and gets a good run out as well. So. Yeah, I would have liked to have potentially seen Marley Salmon, but I think he got a pretty bad injury in the under-21s game I was reading, so he could be out for a little while now. But yeah, it's something like that. Just a full-bred rotation. There's a few players like the Gyökeres's, Rice's, Gabriel, Zubamendi's, Saka's that are going to need, take advantage of a proper rest. And yeah, it's the nostalgia of the FA Cup. Is not what it used to be when we were kids, but it is fixtures like this where you can go to a team a couple of leagues lower at their ground, and then have the sort of number one ranked side in the country come there and get all of the the euphoria of having a televised cup game at your stadium. So I'm looking forward to it just for that sense, really.
Yeah, no, I can't really argue the lineup. I think personally, Trossard will start tomorrow, and Martinelli will play on Saturday. He'll absolutely scare the life out of him, won't he? I can see Martinelli getting a few more goals on Saturday, to be fair. But yeah, comfortable should be Saturday. I think, as you said, just obviously play all the fringe players, and look, hopefully a majority can play 90 minutes, because actually. I think they deserve 90 minutes, obviously, a lot of them, because they've all played bit part roles throughout the season. And hopefully get into the sixth round. And as I said, fingers crossed, we can get a home draw in the sixth round. I think that would be a good thing, just to get a home draw, and then just see who we kind of get in that draw. But one step away from the semi-finals, it can't be sniffed at. I had an interesting conversation the other day, and I do totally agree what the guy was saying in terms of actually. If you say to me now, what do I want? I want the League Cup and the Premier League, because obviously the League Cup will obviously momentum us into the last part of the season, and obviously FA Cup's pretty much like last priority at the moment, which is totally understandable. But I just feel with the FA Cup that actually, if you get into the semi-finals, that stance will change, won't it? Because yet again, it's another point to be able to get to another cup final. And yeah, I don't know why, but I just got this feeling, mate, that I've got this feeling that we'll get to the semis of the FA Cup this year. I think it depends who we get, but obviously the worry with that is as well, isn't it, in terms of with the Champions League and the Premier League, it'd be another massive fixture, won't it? So, but that's what the squad's there for. Which, in terms of the FA Cup running up, if you got to the semi-finals, would you then put out your best team in the semi-final?
Well, it's another trophy, and I think it's all completely relative to who you end up playing. So I think that it will just be based upon purely as to who we draw. If we carry on getting fortunate with the draws, and we think that a bit of rotation can probably deal with it, and you can have your big dogs on the bench ready to pounce if you need them, then great. But yeah, if you end up drawing City or Liverpool or something like that, you're probably going to have to field a slightly stronger side, because I do think Arteta wants to win it all. So, and I do think that his team is sort of a bit more suited for cup football. So,
yeah. Agree.
Yeah, I think it will just be completely related to the opposition that we get, mate, to be honest.
Definitely, but yeah, it's exciting times though. Like getting to the quarter final, anything can happen, can't it? So this it needs to win the game Saturday first and foremost, and then fingers crossed with the FA Cup draw. And I'm sure we'll discuss that next week. Right, we are going to go into the last part of the show, which is the Ask Jim segment. And we will try and race through these. So just going to scroll down. This one's from Pete G. Do you think the meltdown by media and rivals over us scoring from corners may start to have an effect on refs' decisions?
Refs' decisions how?
I guess in terms of obviously what's going on in boxes and that kind of stuff.
I think it's all par for the course. Honestly, like it's just every it is a contact sport at the end of the day. So it is just a scenario where you give as good as you get. So, we are a physical side now. There's no denying it. We've got a lot of big, physical, strong players. And, they're always looking for edge to try and get ahead of their man. Like, they're not grabbing the other player when we're attacking them and trying to engage with contact. It's, a defender is trying to prevent them from getting into an attacking position. So it's the same. If you look at the way that Chelsea scored their goal, it was very similar to a goal that we would score. So I think just more teams are adapting it to part of their playing style now, and it is just a par for the course situation. So I think that it's very difficult unless it's very, very very, very obvious that someone's committed a foul, that the referee will blow up for it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I don't like the thought. They're saying about new rules, but BX going to say new rules will be implemented next season's curve or set piece tactics. For me, it's part of the game. Do you know what I mean? It was never a problem before. And do you know what? I always go back to Burnley in 2021, 20. I think it was 2021-22 season. And we drew the game 0-0. Typical Arteta, Sean Dyche, by the way. And I remember I was about 16 corners, and I said to myself that day, and it wouldn't surprise me if Arteta was thinking it. Well, he obviously was. I was like, only if we could score from a set piece. Oh, we was useless. We was absolutely useless at them, mate. Back in them days, and like I don't really get what the problem is and what the issue is in terms of obviously scoring from corners. Like, don't get me wrong, everyone wants to score from open play, but at the end of the day, if you take a corner, you still want to score from it. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like I think there's too much onus on it. Like if you look around, right, the rest of the league, a lot of teams are scoring from set pieces this year. I think I looked at Crystal Palace. Half their goals, 50% of their goals this year have been from corners.
Yeah, exactly.
So their percentage actually from goals to set pieces and on open play is actually higher than ours. But it's not cool to kind of look at Crystal Palace and say the same thing. Do you know what I mean? Liverpool, I think up to them two set pieces, they went ahead of us within the new year in terms of set pieces. Do you know what I mean? It's the way of the game. You got to adapt to it. Do you know what I mean? Like all this crap about new rules will be implemented. Like, what do we want to do? Do we want to see goals or do we not want to see goals? It seems to me that all the rules should try and make it harder.
Mate, we've scored 58 goals and 16 have been from corners. Do you know what I mean? So
there you go.
You know what I mean? So when you actually deep it, it's
38%, mate. 38% of our goals.
Well, for corners to actual goals, like you can't. A penalty is a penalty. If someone takes down the box, right, you can't really have that. So it's not. If we scored 58 and 16 of corners, we've scored 42 other goals. So and as it stands, obviously we played a game extra than City. We've scored 58 goals and City has scored 57. No one would ever propaganda Pep's teams into playing that style of football. So. If the art of the game is scoring more goals than the opposition, and at the moment, like we've scored the most goals in the Premier League, so you can, it's just like we've spoken about this before about that they need to have something to attack though. So now it's now it's like no longer Gyökeres because he's got back in the goals a little bit and he's been very hot in 2026. He's now back on the set piece bandwagon. You know, I bet they were desperate to not give Saliba the goal on Sunday so they could go back and they just score so many own goals, etc. You know what I mean? It's just like I just find it so arduous to listen to. So yeah,
I enjoy it. I enjoy it. I even do you know what? I even get a great pleasure out of an own goal now.
Yeah.
It rolls everyone else up. Right. Question from Margaret. Do you think the club will address the constant injuries the players keep getting in the summer break, or do you think they don't believe they are connected?
I don't really know how they can address it, Margaret. To be honest, I've said this. This question has come up over the period that we've done the shows, and the only thing I can kind of relate it to is that I think that really in the last 3 or 4 years, especially since the last World Cup in Qatar, when I think David Dean was involved in a team that was, talking about basically the amount of time that was wasted when the ball's out of play. Now we get 3-4 minutes at half time's kind of the average, 6-7 minutes at the end of a game. So all of a sudden now games are 99 to 102 minutes long. We play more fixtures now, with the increased workload in the Champions League with the group stage. So there's more fixtures there for the top sides. I think there's probably in the last couple of years at least one extra international break. So when you look at a top player who plays for a top 4 team who is an international, there's an expectation for a player to play 75 games a season now in all competitions. That's mad, really. It really is. You used to look at minutes and like 31 to 3,200 was like a really solid campaign for a player. I think when Havertz went down for Arsenal in that first injury he got when he came back right at the end of the season, by that December or January, he'd already played 6,000 minutes for Arsenal and he'd been at the club 18 months. So he was tracking like a 4,000 minute season, which is like a 20% increase in workload from a couple of years earlier. And that just will take its toll on the body, So it's not. I can't, and I'm touch wood. I'm sitting on a wooden desk, but I can't remember really the last time we saw a career-shattering tackle like an Aaron Ramsey situation, something like that, where a player in the Premier League has gone down to a god-awful tackle. But the muscle injuries now and the non-contact injuries in the sport are just so rife. And it's not just Arsenal specifically. It's across the game. And I think for player safety, it has to be addressed. But the unfortunate part is that if they keep injecting more and more money into the sport, whether it be TV money, whether it be sponsorship money, or however, the expectation for the workload of the player is always going to be there. And I think the Premier League have done quite well at squashing this idea of potentially players even playing a fixture abroad. I think the Liga mentioned it, didn't they? Weren't they going to go off to America or Australia to play one of their games or something crazy? You have to remember as well, when you've been on holiday, that it sometimes takes a day or two to settle when you go across a time zone and you have elements of stiffness just from like elongated travel where you're in a seated position, and you've got then you've got time zones and obviously being jet lagged and all these things. It's just they're still human beings, they're not robots. So I honestly, I think Arsenal could have done better with injuries for nearly 2 decades now. And they've had issues in their medical department with this thing. It was rife when Wenger was there. But part of this will be completely out of their control. And it's just a repercussion of just completely overplaying players and probably playing too many fixtures. And us as fans, we're like, you know, when Smuggsy, when do you think it will get to the point where you feel like you watch too much football? You know,
Get to that point now, mate.
okay, there you go. So
There you go. That's why I feel physically exhausted. Right, there's 2 questions here, mate, that you pretty much answered. So I'm not going to come out of the questions because we've covered them either within these questions or within the show. So the last question of the night: if you could have any 3 players from any era and team to join the current Arsenal squad, who would they be?
that was Rossi's question, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I
Mr.
saw that.
White himself.
I saw that earlier. It's just a phenomenal question. Any 3 players? Okay. Alexis Sanchez on the left wing.
Yeah, I think we've covered that one before, haven't we?
Santi Cazorla in the midfield 3 to play in the 8.
Great shout. Great shout. Can you imagine him getting the ball into players like Eze?
Oh, just because I do believe that Gyökeres, if he got the service, will be a killer in front of goal, I'm probably more inclined to put a 10 in than I am to sort of like go with the obvious one of an Henri or something like that. So, because it's just a bit of an obvious answer. So, in the way in which we play now and just kind of adding to this team, I'd probably put
I'd go Van Persie.
Bergkamp in the 10.
Ooh.
Or Ozil. I flip a coin. But like, no, do you know what? In this day and age of the football, probably Ozil. I do think Ozil probably had that little bit more defense unlocking pass that would deal with low blocks.
And he'd had a whole team around him.
Yeah, on it, he was crying out for a CDM, wasn't he? But like on his day, fucking hell, like he was so special. And if you had like the runs of a Sanchez, and you already have seen the cohesion, those 3 players have played together as well. So I'd easily flip a coin over a Fabregas or a Cazorla, but just because Santi, Sanchez, and Ozil had a season or 2 together, and we saw how destructive they could be, I really think those 3 players would just be crazy, really, as to what they could do together. And I'd just love to watch those 3 come into, you know, a Gyökeres and Saka right wing. But yeah, I mean, Bergkamp would be just a delight to watch. I think he was so good that he could play in any in any era and still look like he was walking on clouds. So and wouldn't leave a footprint. So, you know, and then you know, the obvious answer would be Vieira, Bergkamp, Henri, right? You know, it's just kind of like the obvious answer, but or Cesc, Bergkamp, Henri probably. But yeah, I think Sanchez on the left wing because we've got a real issue there, and we really need to address that in the summer. I think Bergkamp or Ozil, flip a coin. I'll be delighted with either in the 10, and then Santi in we are desperate for a Santi Cazorla. I would probably say Cazorla and Sanchez are the 2 that this team needs the most, because I just think a deep line playmaker who's technically gifted, who's good in defensive situations, but can play in those scenarios would be absolutely electric. And then a game-winning left winger would do a madness. Now, if I just flip that to what's available in the current game, and if you were recruiting those 3 players this summer, I think my answer would be Rafael Leao to come in on the left wing. I think the probably the best version of a number 8 now who can do both those actions is probably Dominic Szoboszlai. I don't think we could get him, but it's a player of his profile. And who would be the 3rd one? Ooh. You know what, mate? I know this is going to be just because I've got to pick a third one. I'd probably take. I think he's actually going to go down, isn't he? This Hakimi at PSG. So if I assume he might not play football anymore, I mean, there's some really bad things going on about his impending kind of sexual assault cases. So I won't talk too much about that. But the only other right back who I've seen, who I've been really impressed with, would be Dumfries from Inter Milan.
I think right back. I do think right back next year. I think like White will go in summer. I think.
Yeah, I really like the look at this Dumfries, and he's absolutely rapid, quick, really, really good on the overlap, great crosser of the ball. Yeah, so if I had to pick three from the current game, who are potentially attainable. I mean, I don't think Zlobozlai is attainable, but I think Liao and Dumfries absolutely are. And if it wasn't,
Tonali.
Yeah, no, he would. I'll just go out and say, took the word out of my mouth, mate. Yeah, so it'd be Tonali, I think. Yeah,
I think he offers us, mate, something totally different from what the other two midfielders are. And I think, like you see that shot he had the other day, that Pickford somehow put over the bar. Like, we haven't got a player that does that. Do you know what I mean? And I feel that we need that kind of player who will kind of have that capability of having a crack. Do you know what I mean? As such at times. So. And I really like Tonali. I really like Tonali. I think he's a top player. I think in this Arsenal team, he would absolutely cook.
Do you know in recent times, mate, who we've been linked with, who we've missed out on, who I think was maybe a bad decision, was probably Yuri Tillmans. I actually think we should have signed him when we had the chance when he left Leicester. I think actually he poses something in that 8 position that we would really be able to use at the moment, and he'd be a really interesting option. But failing that, if they can get him fit, my mate Bilal messaged me earlier and he said, the difference I think is probably a left-footed left 8, and we spoke about this recently, didn't we? About not, Granit Xhaka got the best out of Martinelli, but I do think that position is there for Havertz if he can have a sustained period of fitness where he would play in that role.
What's your thoughts on Morgan Rogers? Because obviously there's been talk about linked with his name in the past. Do you think he's a player that could come into this squad and add to it? Very young as well, isn't he? Like, what's he, 21, 22?
Yeah, I don't think he can play quite as deep as we would need him to play. I think he's kind of a left-sided player or a 10. I think he's probably very similar to the profile of Eze, and I think you can probably, I think they'd be very close to one another. I don't know necessarily that we get a big jump up in class if we brought a Rodgers in, and I don't think Rodgers and Eze could play together. Ross has just done a global one, mate, of Figo, Zidane, and Raul. Mate, if you were doing a global one, I wouldn't necessarily be my 3, but yeah, no, that was you sit here all night and do these 3, wouldn't you? There would be absolutely no way that I would not have Ronaldinho in it if I was doing a global 3. That's for sure. If you're having a left winger.
I'll tell you what I did last night, right? And I'm going to watch the second half tonight, yeah, right? So, Martin, who does all the clocks, he's done with this USB, and it's basically got all the season reviews and all that, and it's got quite a few of the cup finals. I was actually watching the 1998 cup final, so I watched the first half last night. We're going to watch the second half tonight. And it was when Ross said about Overmars, like that geezer was absolutely rapid.
Yeah.
What a player he was.
Yeah, Overmars would be absolutely absurd on the left wing. You'd even argue that you could probably play Thierry left wing if you wanted him there, But
Barcelona, didn't he?
Yeah, so you sit here all night and just construct these construct these things, but Real Madrid first 4 years of his Arsenal career, Mesut would be absolutely incredible in this in this Arsenal team. So, but yeah, Bergkamp would be phenomenal. Gunnar King said Sanchez, Cazorla, and Fabregas. God, can you imagine Cazorla? I mean, it's so annoying, isn't it, that we never re-signed Cesc and then we had like Cazorla and Ozil in that midfield, like because Arsene never really cared too much about having a deep line player. He was happy to just have box to box midfielders who were as good in both boxes. I would have loved to have seen Cesc and Mesut play together. Oh my giddy aunt, that would have just been a joke. But yeah, no, we got some phenomenal players that we were blessed with over the course of time. But yeah, no, really good question. That a good bit of fun.
Thank you very much, Ross. So that pretty much wraps up the show for tonight. Obviously, firstly, thank you to everyone in the chat. Some absolute great dialogue tonight. Once again, as per usual. And as we always say, we really value in terms of obviously your input. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, thank you, Jim, for obviously coming on tonight. I know it's been a bit of a tough week for you, mate, but as always good to, on a Tuesday night, to discuss all things Arsenal.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, thank you for always checking in. And pretty. Hopefully, we're close to a bit of a resolution out here, and things get back to normal. It's very kind of everyone, with their well wishes. So it is a bit of a strange time here in the UAE at the moment, but we're all safe, and pray that obviously we get a stern resolution soon and we can get back to some normality.
Absolutely, mate. Fingers crossed for you all. And obviously that pretty much wraps up the show tonight. So we will be back next Tuesday, same time, same place, 5:30 p.m. And hopefully we'll be singing and dancing, either remaining 5 points clear, or you never know, maybe a little bit more. Hopefully Forest can do us some kind of favour. And obviously a big 6th round draw potentially. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and hope you all have a good evening and rest of the week. Good night.
Good night.